worried about the guy holding the other. I'm worried about the guy holding the other guy. At some point, he gonna go down. Oh, that's a 50.
Here comes McClung.
Oh, yes, Hezzy. That's a Hezzy. That's called a Hezzy dunk. So you
high school jersey. Yeah.
High school jersey.
This is the high school that he played for, that he broke the Iverson and the J.J. Redick records in the state of Virginia. Here he goes.
And he's putting on the handle. That's a wrap.
Wow, look at this.
That's a 540.
That was beautiful.
Look. That's a 540, bro.
He really tricked y'all. Hey, you know what it is?
35.
There's a
35.
There's a seven-time All-Star, Damian Lillard.
I think it's incredible that Adam allows things like this to be done nowadays. Like, just for the NBA as a whole.
I think it's cool, right? Dollar on the back.
This is his range. That's easy.
This
That's
money ball.
They need the money ball. He got it. Hey, now.
Please direct your attention to center court and welcome Head of Marketing for Starry, Michael Smith, here to present the 2023 Starry Three-Point Contest Trophy to Damian Lillard from the Portland Trail Blazers.
Welcome to the special President's Day edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brownhead, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80, SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And speaking of our podcast, Second City Sports, you can subscribe to our podcast by subscribing at War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, just go ahead and give them a follow while you're at it at WARR Media on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid or silly, I've given Lakina full power to give you full stability and be about.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we begin, we must remind you that you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. Celebrate the squad, get with the program, and celebrate with the squad. I'm sure I repeated that twice, but I don't care. We need you to get reminded. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku TV, just tap on the sports folder and download Sports Zone Chicago's app through that avenue. If you don't have a Roku TV, but you have your personal PC, your Chromebook like I'm using right now, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Android phone, your Apple phone, just download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that way. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and give it the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anywhere, any time of the day, whether it's at about this time, about lunchtime here, listen, watch, and at your lunch, or if you if you don't get off till like 2 or 3 in the morning, you listen to us back then as well. So if you're off on President's Day, you're listening to it for the first time, welcome. We're gonna try to have a little bit of fun here in this loaded show today. Of course, we'll talk some NFL, some news there. Also, we remember a baseball legend. We didn't get a chance to do that on Friday. Also, too, some college hoops, some big upset and some big wins as we get closer and closer to March. And another milestone from one Mr. Patrick Kane, and also another milestone in golf as well. So, Sid, we're going to get right to it, and we're going to talk a little NBA All-Star Weekend celebration. Our buddy, let me get the comments here. Our buddy Vernon Fairley already kind of, coming up with the smart aleck this today. He said also we're gonna have some great sleep, especially missing the white boy can't jump dunk. I'm like, okay, let's start off with the All-Star festivities first, and we'll get to the game.
Yeah, the clips came courtesy of the NBA on TNT and NBA Entertainment. We like to thank the one and all. Go ahead.
Yep, and so we're gonna wait. You lost my train of thought there. Okay, let's get to the NBA All Star stuff first. We'll get to the skills competition and whatnot. Of course, the hometown guys, Utah. A team consisting of Jordan Clarkson and others too. They defeated the rookies. A trio of rookies, also two Giannis's brothers and Drew Holiday. It was actually a pretty interesting skills challenge there and such. Then we got to the three-point contest, of course, Dame Dollar. You saw it on the clip there from Turner. He this is actually his first time winning the contest, and also he's the first Blazers to win a dunk contest too, which is a little bit shocking. They had great sharpshooters there. Also to the dunk, of course, Mac McClung, who former Georgetown guy, played for the Bulls and actually the Windy City Bulls for a little bit before going to do other things. He actually signed a two-way deal with Philly. So that's how he got in. He was actually on their G League team before he got there's this whole discussion as to whether or not maybe they should open up a little bit more since basically he was just drinking a cup of coffee in the G League. And then of course the game itself, we'll talk about the game in a second. But what did you think about the All-Star weekend, all the festivities and all the pomp and circumstance and all that in Salt Lake?
Minus the game last night, which we'll get to later. I was entertained by All-Star Saturday night. Was it one of the best of all time? No. Was it terrible? No, but I was very entertaining. If you watched our show or listened to our show on Friday, I was asking you guys out there in semi-radio YouTube land, and also to our illustrious panel, and Josh Hicks, our guy from War Media, and It's the Bigs who covers the Bulls for that great organization. He said Matt McClung, he could jump, but he could possibly win this thing. And Josh, he was right. Matt McClung, a G Leaguer, basically saved the dunk contest. Now, shout out to Troy Murphy III, who was the most consistent dunker, as Kenny Smith on the telecast said on Saturday. He had some great dunks, but Matt McClung was a crowd favorite. I was cheering for him personally. I think that if the dunk contest would have went on a little bit longer, I think he would have had some more tricks up his sleeve. But the only problem that I had with the dunk contest was some of the scoring. I don't know how they judge some of those dunks, including Lisa Leslie. I love her, but I think it was the second dunk that McClung had. She gave him a 49.8. What the hell was that? But all in all, I enjoyed the dunk contest. Is it one of the best of all time? No. Was it very good for what it was, the circumstances? Yes. But I was very entertained.
I know people want to make the jokes that, white guys can't jump. Of course, everybody, make the little comment about, white guy win a dunk contest in Salt Lake City. I mean, of course, that's a little bit too much on the head for some people. But let's remember, he's not the first white guy to win. I mean, Brent Barry, I remember years ago back, I think it was 98.
96 during the All-Star weekend in San Antonio.
Yeah, he was playing for the Clippers at the time, and he jumped from like near the free throw line. So he had his moments too. So let's not do the whole white guys can't jump. I don't know why. Some of the scoring, like I said, there was a little bit of a choice. I mean, like you said, that second dunk. I mean, why didn't Lisa? That was a little bit of hater there. Look, I love her too, but yeah, so there was some hating going on with some of those scoring. But I digress. But I think our buddy Eugene McIntosh from the Big said it best. I mean, let's open it a little bit even more though. Let's open it to maybe and one. Bring some of those and one guys on. Bring some of the the mixtape guys on, so that if you want to open it up to some of the top guys don't want to do it. Let's especially with McClung winning the All-Star dunk contest. Why not have just bring those guys on? So it just seems a little silly that that kind of was the case there, but it is what it is with that. I want to see a couple of comments there from our buddy Vernon again. Really, Vernon, really, say your show later on. Really, I'm not even going to read that. But yeah, I mean, it's just the whole thing was just it was actually okay for what it was. I mean, look, was it one of the best ever? Probably not. But again, I think definitely showing a little bit of a little bit of sass and such. So it was fine for what it was.
I think the telecast was fine too, with Kevin Harlan, Kenny Smith, and the rest of the guys from inside the NBA. I know Kenny Smith was getting an earful from Draymond Green, who was also a part of the telecast this weekend, and especially during the dunk contest. I understood the point where Kenny Smith was coming from regarding Matt LeFlunk. He had to earn his respect because Matt McClung only had a cup of coffee in the league already. He played with the Lakers for a game or two last year. He hasn't been called up to the main team so far this season. But after I think the second or third dunk and Kenny Smith started, I said, okay, I want to see what this guy can do. And Draymond Green was starting to rag on him already. I think it in part was humor, but in other part it was like everybody was rooting for him, and it seemed like everybody was trying to portray that Kenny Smith was rooting against him. But I understood where Kenny Smith was coming from. He has to earn my respect. Show me what you can do. And of course, Kenny Smith went crazy just like everybody else at the end when he won it.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But like I said, I think the whole thing with the dunk contest and such, I mean, I would say just maybe just raise the stakes a little bit more if you really want to kind of like, bump it up a little bit. Now, as far as the skills competition, of course, you had Walker Kessler, Jordan Clarkson, of course, Colin Sexton, of course, the hometown guys from Utah winning that competition, beating out, like I said, Drew Holiday, who was filling in for Giannis and and Giannis's two brothers, and you had the rookie team led by Jabari Smith and Paolo Pacquiao and such, Jaden Ivey. So yeah, that was a pretty interesting, entertaining contest as well. The 3-point contest. I mean, that was actually to me that was actually the best part of the All-Star festivities for me, because Dame knew exactly what to do, and the 3-point ways. He actually saved those money balls. Of course, they set up so that the whole record money balls is the best. The best, ring from that top of the key, and that's on the side. That's where Dame's best showing. So, Julius Randle, I felt bad for his son. He was not. He was a little upset that his dad didn't, unfortunately, didn't have his best showing there. But Dame, they beat guys, like Tyrese Halliburton and those guys. So. It was definitely that was probably the best part of the weekend for me, was that 3-point because you saw guys, you saw Halliburton, he had a really good showing. Buddy Hield, of course, his teammate from Indiana, had a nice showing as well. So there was a lot of great like 3-point sort of show there. So that was my favorite part of the All-Star festivities.
Yeah, he mentioned Halliburton. He was the first shooter. He got off to a hot start with 31 points in the first round. Of course, he sat for nearly 45 minutes before he took his turn in the final round. Of course, he struggled, but Damian Lillard, congratulations to him. He deserved it. As you mentioned, this was his third time in the contest. He finally won one in the state that he played his college ball at. It was shout out to him for wearing his college jersey. And I thought that was a great moment too. But Buddy Hield, I thought it was going to win it, Lakina, in that final round. He really got hot, especially toward the end there. Now, I want to ask you, and of course, all of our listeners out there in YouTube land, do you like the two glowing in the dark balls presented by Stray? They put it on both sides of the top of the key bracket. They had to hit attempt the shot before they go continue with the race. Do you like those? I kind of like those. I know they instituted that a couple years ago, but I kind of like that. If you hit one of those shots, you earn 3 points.
Yeah, add more depth into it. I think I always like that different balls and such. Those are worth 3 points and such. So of course, Dame went to Weber State for a couple of years. I think he got his degree about 3 or 4 years ago, and still, you saw the tours out to Utah. That's only about an hour and a half away from Salt Lake City, maybe 2 hours, give or take. So that's why you saw a little bit of appreciation there, even though he plays for the rival divisional team. But yeah, I mean, I like the balls. I mean, look, like I said, it adds more depth, adds more scoring opportunities. So it was fine. I mean, Kevin Huerter from the Kings, he didn't have a good showing either, so that wasn't. And also Lauri Markkanen, of course, we'll get to the game itself after the break, but he didn't have his best showing either in that 3-point contest as well. So yeah, it was sort of one of those. Look, I mean, like I said, I think it was great to see Dame winning that, and he definitely earned that. And look, I mean, he just couldn't hit the shots. I think Dame hit a lot of those front shots at the wing, so that's what helped him win the competition.
Yep, and like I said, he deserved to win that contest. It was actually a great final. Too bad, like I said, Tyrese Halliburton, who started off the contest with 31 points, he didn't have enough in the tank in that final round. But like I said, Buddy Hield set the standard with that 26 score, I should say, in that final round. But Damian Lillard knew what to do. He got hot in those last 3 racks and took home the title. So it was slightly better than that dunk contest, Lakina. So I'm kind of swaying on your side a little bit. Like I said, I was entertained by the dunk contest. It wasn't the greatest, but if I had to rank the events from Saturday night, slightly number one, the 3-point contest, dunk contest, and then the skills was last.
Yeah, that's probably where I would put it as well. So we're gonna take a really quick break. We're gonna talk about the game itself. People were already bitching about it. Even some of the players on the court were bitching about it. We'll get to all that. We'll also talk some college hoops as well. Northwestern makes their debut in the top 25. So we'll see if they can kind of keep it up. I'm still not buying Northwestern. I'm not buying stock on them, but we'll get to all that coming up next. Also do some other upsets too. In the world of college who's going to be closer and closer to March. So, Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. More Hoops Talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, sorry. Welcome back to the special President's Day edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CKid80. Once again, it's CKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have less than 90 minutes of this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You want to hit us up in the comments section, you can do so by scoring to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. The All-Star game, the 2023 edition took place last night in Salt Lake City, Utah. Team Giannis defeated Team LeBron 184-175. How did DeMar DeRozan do for the Chicago Bulls? He was selected by Team Giannis. He finished the game with 8 points on 4-6 shooting in 16 minutes of action. Of course, Jason Tatum set an all-star record with 55 points, breaking the record previously held by Anthony Davis of the New Orleans Pelicans at the time back in 2017 when he scored 54 points. Lakina, the all-star game wasn't really that much entertained by it. Of course, it represented what the game of basketball is today at all levels. But I watched the TBS broadcast. I was more entertained by that as they were celebrating Charles Barkley's birthday and him yelling at Ernie Johnson about putting his quote-unquote dirty hands in his cake. Draymond Green and Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith going there toward the end of that broadcast, discussing Golden State and everybody else prognosticating for the upcoming Western Conference playoffs. The game wasn't that entertaining, Lakina, but I was entertained to a certain extent by the TBS alternate broadcast.
I mean, yeah, it was sort of like, I'm glad they got those simulcasts. I thought, I saw the original broadcast on TNT with Brian Anderson, Reggie Miller, and Candace Parker because I felt that, look, just give me, I know they were going to celebrate Charles's birthday. I did watch the TBS broadcast for a little bit, but look, it was fun. I mean, actually, AD had 52 in the All-Star that game, and also too, Russell Westbrook had 41 on 2017. Actually, Tatum actually broke that record as well, but also too, it's sort of one of those, I guess, like I said, I mean, okay, yeah, there was no defense played. I know Jaylen Brown said that, complained that, they wouldn't let them play defense. No Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from OKC, they were, he was upset that they didn't, that LeBron wouldn't let him play defense. So, and also Donovan Mitchell had 40 points as well. He and Tatum actually become the second set of teammates in All-Star game history to each score 40 plus points. Of course, join AD and Westbrook. We'll get to Westbrook in a second. He has a new home. But look, I think for me, the All-Star game is for what it was. I mean, you're not going to get a lot of defense. Your guys are going to be missing shots. It was like that for a minute. Dame ended up winning in the three-pointer. Of course, it was a score was to 182. So, and look, you got your local charities involved. So, they were going to win regardless. They're going to get money regardless. So, look, it's fine. I mean, okay, I'll open up to suggestion. What would you do to spice up the All-Star game? I said on Friday, do 5-on-5 for the first half, and then do, go, 3-on-3 for, let's go into the third quarter, and by the fourth quarter, go 1-on-1. I mean, if you want to spice it up a bit, do that. I mean, I don't know what else can you do. So I know that they tried to, they did the whole pick of the teams thing, which I thought was pretty funny. Giannis tried to, pick John Morant, who wasn't even out there yet. They were picking the reserves first and such. Luka, I know people were sort of like wondering, like, why was Luka among the last two guys? He was going right over to LeBron's team. I think, LeBron didn't even have to pick. I don't know. I know people made a big deal about him. They're calling him Luka, but that was a little bit of the set. Yeah, that was a little bit weird. But yeah, Nikola Jokic, I mean, being about in the last, two guys picked, but happy birthday to him. He also celebrated birthday. So he scored, he turned 28 yesterday. So yeah, I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was funny. The mics part was a little bit weird because you heard Charles and them, hello, it's an audio person, whoever's out there, turn down the mics.
Although it was just me. It's like, and I watched the TBS broadcast. Talking about doing the player draft, and I turned to TNT. It was the same thing. Like you said, whoever's handling the audio is not doing a good job right now. I don't think Kenny and Chuck and Shaq were supposed to be talking over Ernie Johnson, who was coordinating the player draft. I thought that was strange.
Well, no. It was simple that not turn off the mics. That's all. That's what happened. Whoever.
Well, what you saying? Those three shouldn't be talking. Turn the mics off.
Turn off the mics. I mean, or turn it down. I mean, I don't know what happened there, but but they corrected that pretty quick. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny. I know you poor Jared Jackson Jr. I mean, that poor kid. You have to sit there and be the last one picked, but hey, look, somebody had to be. It was gonna have to be that person. So, but it was the case with him. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun. I thought it was entertaining. But I think for anybody that was. I know some of the players were bitching about it, about not being able to play defense and yada, yada, yada. But, okay, what else do you want to do? Do you want to just be off for like a week? And, Luka himself said that, we said on Friday that look, he's going to go to Mexico. He's probably there right now as we speak. So I think there's other guys going to be going on vacation in various spots. So I mean, what do you want to do? What would you suggest that they would do to kind of spice up the All-Star game itself?
I'm just throwing it out there. You know how in the fourth quarter they shut down the clocks, the shot clock and the game clock, and they just play to a target score? Can we do that for the entire second half? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
You would think.
Look, it's sort of one of those things where you wonder, like, okay, why wasn't more defense being played and whatnot? So, like, I don't know, but you don't want to risk guys getting hurt. So, I of course you're gonna sell a little bit of. I don't know. Well, like I said, I don't know what else can you do to kind of spice it up, but I'm all about the suggestions.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Outside of what I just said, what else can you do? Like I said, the prize money, half those guys don't really need it. Like I said, all that is going to the charities that those two teams are playing for. So outside of that, what else can you do?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, if you do, throw in a car. Like I said, put some extra cash into it. If a guy scores a certain amount of points, it's just like, I don't know. It's definitely, I don't know. What else can you say? But going into the rest of the week, we'll do this weekend's games on Friday's show. But yeah, look, it was a fun All-Star break. And Utah did a really good job. Salt Lake City did a great job. I know, seeing some of the guys. I know some people had issues with Karl Malone judging the All-Star slam dunk contest. I don't know what else could you have done there, but it was great. The celebrity, our buddy Lamont Scott said the celebrity game was actually pretty. I didn't watch that, but he said it was pretty good. So I don't know. Look, we've been talking about this with all the All-Star games, weekends. You got NHL, the Pro Bowl with the NFL and such. And MLB All-Star game. We'll do some baseball at the top of the hour. But yeah, they're fine for what they are. Look, this is just for the fans and for the sponsors and such. That's basically what a lot of these games are.
Exactly. So next year the NBA All-Star Weekend will be in Indianapolis, Indiana. So they're an hour ahead of us, Lakina. I don't know if we'll be lucky to get down there next year, but that's where All-Star Weekend next year will be in Indianapolis, Indiana, the home of the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to Second City Sports, the special President's Day edition, the Monday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. Let's get into some college hoops. There was some exciting results over the weekend. We'll start out locally. The Northwestern Wildcats, yes, those Northwestern Wildcats from the city of Evanston outside Chicago, they are now 20-7 on the season after they dominate the Iowa Hawkeyes 80-60. Boo Booey, don't laugh at his name. That's his name. He dropped 23 points and 8 dimes for the Wildcats, while Chris Murray of the Iowa Hawkeyes had 14 points. Lakina, they caught Iowa on a bad day. Northwestern, I'm talking about, their defense was outstanding, and they got some much needed help, especially on the offensive boards throughout that game. And Northwestern's scoring actually picked up. They scored 80 points for the first time in a while. And Chris Collins has it going on right now. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be the Big Ten coach here. They'll probably go to Matt Painter or Purdue. But Northwestern, I told you last week, Lakina, they need 20 to 21 wins before the Big Ten tournament takes place here in Chicago in a couple of weeks. In my mind, it's official. They're going to the NCAA tournament. They technically can't, but they cannot now possibly score this up now with I believe 3 or 4 games remaining in the regular season.
They're number 21 though. I think that's the first time being back there since going to the tournament. So look, it's one of the I was one of those teams where you can catch them on a bad day. So they fortunately for Northwestern, they caught them on the bad day. So look, I like this. They're a good team. Like I said, I don't know if they can go far. We'll have to wait and see. But going into they were like I said, they depend on the 3 a little bit too much for my liking. That's not a good thing if you're trying to go far at any tournament. I don't care if it's the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament. So yeah, like I said, we'll see. Look, if let's say like I said, let's say totally wet the bed. They should get into the tournament. The bubble's a little bit soft this year, so we'll see how the quad 1 wins and 2 or 3 wins. I don't know what the heck they're talking about that. I stopped listening to this when it comes to all the other stuff. But but yeah, Similarly, I mean, I think they should be able to get in, pending a big, monumental collapse. So they should be fine. But unfortunately, the one team that did not help themselves with their tourney chances, Oregon. Oregon's kind of like right on the other side of not the good side of the boat right now. They lost to Wazoo. They lost to Washington State yesterday, so that does not help them with their tourney chances and whatnot. Purdue got a nice bounce back win from Ohio State, beating them pretty handily. Houston pulled away from Memphis by 8. NC State beat North Carolina 77-69. North Carolina is in real danger of missing the tournament unless they make a big showing in the ACC conference tournament and they finish strong. They could be the first team to, be the preseason number 1, which I always thought that was they were a little high for them. They should have been at least like in the top 12 or 15 to not making the tournament at all. I consider after what happened with their breakthrough last year, but I don't know what happened with that one. Now Bradley got a nice win, edging out Southern Illinois. I actually watched a little bit of this game yesterday.
Me too.
It was definitely Bradley did just enough to win that game. They didn't shoot the ball very well, but neither did Southern, unfortunately. So they were able to kind of attain that. They're still in the top 5 in the Missouri Valley Conference. I think their tournament starting like in a couple of weeks. Actually, the Missouri Valley. So any team needs to be in the top 4. They get a double bye the way that, like I said, the way it's set up now. So that helps them a little bit. Now Drake beat Belmont, so Southern Illinois is still like right there in that little edge there in this Missouri Valley. We'll get to the rest of the schedule. We'll probably talk about the schedule like probably Friday, but they still got a shot. But that loss did not help them yesterday against Bradley.
Yeah, first going back to the ACC, and you talking about North Carolina and head coach Hubert Davis. I did get a chance to check out some of those highlights from yesterday. When you shoot 38% and you give up a bunch of offensive rebounds, you're not going to win many games in the sport of basketball. I don't care if it's high school, college, NBA, wherever. You're not going to win many games. And the problem is for me watching North Carolina, well, where's that second scorer going to come from? And their commitment to team defense has been up and down all year long.
Yeah, that's kind of been the problem for them. So, that they've had guys struggle. Amado Bako, I should say. Caleb Lowe I saw led the way with 23, but really didn't get a lot of help. So, unfortunately, that's been the problem with North Carolina lately. So, we'll see what happens with that. Another team, Maryland had a bad loss, but a nice win for Fred Hoiberg and his Nebraska Cornhuskers, 70-66. In overtime, UIC beat Valpo 74-73. They edged them out there. So going back to Saturday's games, very entertaining Saturday games. Some very let's just say poor Georgia. I felt bad for them. They had to face Alabama after Alabama losing. So 108-59. They just hammered the Bulldogs. That was because if you remember when they lost to Vanderbilt, when they lost to Oklahoma, I should say earlier this season, they beat the first time they beat Vanderbilt by 57 points. So, so probably not a good time to face Alabama after a loss. I guess they're taking the cue from football coach Nick Saban. UCLA, no trouble with California. Kansas came back. I think they were down like 13 at the half against Baylor. They were able to come in with a big second half. Jalen Wilson had 21 points, leading the way for that big comeback, over at Fog Allen. That was a fun game to watch. And like I said, they 55-26 as they outscore Baylor in the second half to win that game and avenge that early season loss.
Yeah, Jalen Wilson, clearly a top 5 player in the country. As I said before, Lakina, I'll say it again. Who's going to give him that second help? Who's going to be that second help to help him out on Kansas? And if they can figure that out in time for the Big 12 tournament, and of course the big dance in a few weeks, I think Kansas would be okay. I know they struggled a few weeks ago in the middle part of the season. It looks like they're starting to turn it around now.
Absolutely, probably the perfect time to do it to Texas. They were also back and forth game with Oklahoma, but they edged them out 85-83 in overtime. Virginia also edged out Notre Dame. Another tough loss for Mike Brey, who's going to be leaving Notre Dame after this season. But a nice showing by Virginia edging out there. Kihir Clark had 15 points, and also too, I believe he broke the school record for assists. He had 4 assists, but that actually breaks the school record that John Crotty had from most in school history. So a nice congratulations to him and a nice showing there. Kentucky got a nice resume building win. You know, you never thought you had to say it with a Kentucky team, but they pulled away from Tennessee 66-54. Oscar Tshiebwe had 16 points for the Cats, and I think they really needed this win desperately because they were kind of like on the outside of the bubble looking in. So this definitely helps them in that resume building.
Yeah, back to Big Ten basketball locally. The Fighting Illini dropped their record to 17-9 after losing to the Indiana Hoosiers, the 14th ranked Hoosiers in the country in Bloomington on Saturday, 71-68. RJ Melendez missed the potential game-tying three that would have sent the game into overtime. Trace Jackson Davis had 26 points. Matthew Meyer had 24 to lead the Illini. Lakina, I did get a chance to watch most of the second half. Lakina, the Illini had their chances, but Dane Danger was in foul trouble. And Rogers, their sixth man coming off the bench, he carried the Illini for a while. Coleman Hawkins actually played well toward the end of the game. He had that big steal in the dunk, which got the Illini still within striking distance. Indiana was doing any and everything to give the Illini that game. The Illini was up as much as 8 points in that second half, but they just couldn't shoot the ball down the stretch. All the hustles plays that Indiana got, they ended up with a basket, in particular the three-point shot. So Indiana, even though they deserve to lose that game, they're lucky to walk away with the win. Illinois has to feel sick to their stomach giving that game away.
Well, Indiana, I think they were still smarting from the loss Northwestern, so they probably were kind of feeling their oats a little bit. But look, I think if you're in Illinois, I should say, you weren't able to come in and sort of like take advantage of some of those bad misses that Indiana had. Now Jackson Davis had 5 blocks as well, so second time this season. So he made some big defensive plays late. So unfortunately for the Illini, they didn't hit their shots, so to kind of help combat Indiana not making theirs. So that's one of those losses where they've lost a couple in a row. I'm talking about Illinois, so we'll see if they can get together. K-State beat Iowa State 61-55, I should say. Miami, they're at the top of the ACC right now. They beat Wake. Xavier beats DePaul. St. Mary's held off BYU. There were a couple of missed calls late. That was a little bit nutty. Creighton held off St. John's. Connecticut did just enough to beat Seton Hall. TCU, no trouble with OK State. Providence held off Villanova, among other scores. So yeah, some of these sort of scores are, like I said, these are teams that are trying to get going there just in time for March. Arkansas, no trouble with Florida. That helps them out a little bit there. A lot of these schools, like I said, at this point are kind of just trying to kind of get it going, as such as they're trying to kind of get together for March Madness, which starts in a few weeks. So a lot of teams like your Oregons, like Pittsburgh, who lost to Tech, who are also on the bubble, so they're kind of battling out there as well in the ACC for some of that spots. Louisville beat Clemson. Clemson, they're fading fast after being ranked in the top 25, actually at the top 15 at one point. Michigan State, I know their mind was probably on other things. They lose to Michigan, but a really nice sentiment by Michigan. They honored the 3 victims of that horrible shooting that happened last week in East Lansing. You won't see this very often with 2 in-state rivals, especially. So the ADs, they exchanged a hug. That was really sweet. And actually, it turned out to be a very good game. But Michigan made the shots late to pull away there.
Yeah, Doug McDaniel led the Wolverines with 18 points, and for Michigan State, Joey Hauser led them with 20. Like, at the end of the game, I don't know if you paid attention to it or watched it, but it was around 20 seconds left to go. Of course, Michigan had the game in hand. Tom Izzo spent his last timeout. I assume he was trying to get the guys to focus, even though the game was over. I couldn't understand in the beginning why he called that timeout, even though the game was already in hand. Did you had a chance to check that out?
I actually tuned out by then, so I didn't watch any of that game. I mean, I guess I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure their minds were on other things, so I think they probably weren't thinking about that. I think they just wanted to get out of there and such. I mean, it was nice little therapy for them, but I'm sure they'll get together. I mean, these circumstances, unfortunately, has been happening too often in a lot of these places, so it is what it is with that. But like I said, nice sentiment there by Michigan to kind of help honor the victims. They wear little pins and such. The little green pins. Like I said, you'll never see it very often where Michigan folks hugging each other. So that I'm sure by the time football season starts, they're going to be hating each other again. But for right now, it's nice to see that nice little camaraderie there.
Yeah, and staying with the Big Ten, Rutgers get a big 1-point win at Wisconsin on Saturday, 58-57. Both teams are still on the outside. Well, Wisconsin's more on the outside looking in. Rutgers has been arguably the second best team record-wise in the Big Ten this year, but they get a big win on the road.
Yeah, they did. And Vanderbilt upset Auburn. So Auburn, they're sort of sticking fast as well. So I don't know. I mean, not saying that they're not, Bruce Pearl's guys are not in danger of, not getting in the tournament, but this is not the time to have these bad losses. No disrespect to Jerry Stackhouse and his Vandy guys. Now USC, pulled away from Stanford, so you got they all the wins they can get as they as we get closer and closer to the big dance here. So like I said, going down as we get closer and closer to the end of February, going into March, some of these conference tournaments, especially on the smaller side, will be starting in a couple of weeks. So you have to think that maybe some of these teams, some of these top teams that are in the bubble, they got to try and make sure that everything else, try to get those wins and avoid some of those bad losses like we saw yesterday with Oregon. Now, a special shout out to Jameer Nelson Jr. Now, if you guys remember, his dad, Jameer Sr., yes, get ready to feel old, folks. Of course, he had a big, he had a great career over at St. Joe's. St. Joe's, of course, was just a couple of games away from just missed making the Final Four. Of course, that team that to stay undefeated early, all the way through the season and whatnot. But his son, Jameer Nelson Jr., of course, Delaware, they made the tournament last year and they had a nice showing there. Actually, almost pulled off an upset there, I believe. But he had a good showing against UNC Wilmington on Saturday. He had a career high 39 points. That matched his dad's career high when Jameer did it. He had 39 points for St. Joe's against Dayton in the 03 A10 tournament. So they're actually in their conference right now. I'm talking about Delaware. So they can go back to the big dance, back-to-back years for the first time in a while. So just want to give him a little bit of a shout out as well.
Yeah, you're making me feel old. That was the best backcourt in the country over 20 years ago. So, yeah, Nelson and Delonte West, yeah, they were exciting to watch. Phil Martell coaching those guys, yeah, those were good times back then.
Yeah, unfortunately for St. Joe's, they've kind of fallen off a little bit, but hopefully they can kind of figure it out. Especially now you got UIC and Loyola. Well, you got Loyola, I should say, to contend with now in the A10. So I'm sure they'll be able to figure it out as well. So yeah, so those are some of your scores for college hoops this weekend, going into tonight and into Wednesday through Thursday. You got Louisville and Duke, ESPN at 6:00 tonight, Monday. You got OK State and West Virginia on ESPN2 at the same time on I should say at 6:00 at the same time. Should be a good one here in the Big 12. I should say you got Kansas and TCU. Number 3 Kansas, number 24 TCU at 8:00 on ESPN. Illinois will try to get back on track against Minnesota. They should be able to do that. That's going to be on the Big Ten Network at 8. And I know there was the top 16. I think Purdue's the number 1 overall seed right now. You got Houston, Kansas. I forgot who was the other for number 1, but I'm sure I'm sure there might be some changes once we get closer. You got a couple more weeks left in the season. Once the conference tournament starts, there's definitely going to be some movement there with some of those teams. So.
Yep. Going into Tuesday's schedule, tomorrow we'll have Villanova and number 16 Xavier at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on FS1. At 6:00 on ESPN2, number 9 Baylor at number 14 Kansas State. That should be a good one in the Big 12. That place in Manhattan, Kansas will be jumping. Also at 6:00 on ESPN on Tuesday, we'll have number 11 Tennessee and number 25 Texas A&M. Big game for both teams. And at 6:00 on ESPNU, we'll have number 13 the University of Miami traveling to Morgantown to face Virginia Tech.
6:00.
Actually, Blacksburg, I should say.
Yeah, Blacksboro, Virginia. Yeah, Murray State and Missouri State at 6 on CBS Sports Network. That should be a fun one. That has a lot of Missouri Valley implications because Murray State they're still trying to stay in that realm in that top tier. So getting ready for that one. Mississippi State and the Fighting Mike Burmers, as we call them here, the Mizzou, they're trying to get back on track at 6 o'clock on SEC Network. They're trying to rack up as many wins as they can. In the Big East, FS1 7:30, you got Marquette and Creighton, number 10 against number 19 in Omaha. That's at 7:30 on FS1. Iowa State and number 8 Texas. That's going to be on the Longhorn Network at 8 o'clock. Indiana and Michigan State the Breslin Center will be very emotional there as with everything going on. It's gonna be their first home game since that tragic shooting in East Lansing on their campus. So that should be a very emotionally charged night at 8 o'clock on ESPN. Texas Tech, Oklahoma. Tech trying to get those wins for tournament purposes. That's at 8 o'clock. Excuse me, and Georgia and Arkansas at 8 o'clock on SEC Network.
A couple of games to know as we head towards Wednesday's schedule. At 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus, we'll have Bradley will face Valparaiso. Of course, Bradley's still trying to keep their top spot, trying to take over the Drake Bulldogs in the Missouri Valley Conference. That's at 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus on Wednesday. And at the same time on the ACC Network, we'll have Syracuse traveling Clemson to take on the Tigers. Syracuse 16-11, while Clemson has a record of 19-8. And continuing with our Wednesday schedule, we'll have Southern Illinois. They'll continue to see if they can climb back to the top of that the Missouri Valley Conference. They'll host Northern Iowa at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus. Southern Illinois with a big loss yesterday to Bradley. Their record is now 20-9. And speaking of Drake, on Wednesday at 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus, they'll host Illinois State. Drake checks in with a record of 23-6. Of course, DePaul will host Butler. That's on FS1 at 7:30 on Wednesday. And the number one team in the country, the Houston Cougars, will host Tulane at 8 o'clock on Wednesday on ESPNU. Lakina, you're muted. Okay. We'll continue with the conference schedule with the schedule of college basketball going into Thursday's action. We'll have Memphis and Wichita State at 6 o'clock on ESPN. So you back with us, Lakina? You are muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Providence and UConn, you forgot that number 20 and number 18, the Big East.
Okay.
That's at 5:30 on FS1. Let's see. New Mexico and Boise State. Like I said, New Mexico, they need to get back in it. In that Missouri Valley. I mean, they need this one desperately. That's going to be at 9:30 on FS1. Also, Auburn needs to bounce back. They host Ole Miss at 8 o'clock on SEC Network. Iowa, Wisconsin, both these teams need to kind of get it together. They're trying to get into the tournament. That's at 8 o'clock on the Big Ten Network on Wednesday.
Thursday's action will have Memphis. My computer is acting up here. I know Memphis will be playing on Thursday. Jesus
Wichita
Christ.
State.
Yeah, Wichita State. Thank you. That's why I have teammates. Yeah, so that'll be the first game up. At 8 o'clock on Thursday on the Big Ten Network, Northwestern, first time ranked in a few years. They'll travel to Champaign to face the Fighting Illini. That's at 8 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Illinois trying to start a new winning streak, assuming they beat Minnesota tonight. They have a big test against Northwestern at home on Thursday. Remember, Northwestern beat Illinois back in early January, so the Fighting Illini will have revenge on their minds.
Yes, they will. And I think you got all like the top games here. UCLA and Utah at 9:30 on FS1. Let's see here. That's pretty much it. I mean, the Michigan and Rutgers at 7:30 on FS1. Like I said, that should be a fun one. Michigan really needs if they're trying to get into the other side of the bubble. And Northern Kentucky against Detroit Mercy. If you know Antoine Davis, he's trying to break those all types of scoring records in the NCAA. So you guys could check him out. Of course, we talked about him for a couple of weeks here. 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus if you want to check that game out as well. And that is your schedule for this week in college hoops as we get closer and closer to March Madness.
Yeah, remember Selection Sunday is Sunday, March 12th. So it's only a few weeks away. So it'll be around the corner before you know it. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead. You listen to a special President's Day edition of Second City Sports. We'll have baseball to talk about. And we have an interesting top 10 list of MLB center fielders in the game today. We'll go through that list. The White Sox actually signed somebody again, Lakina. We'll see who they signed and if they'll help the White Sox get back to the playoffs this year. We also had to talk about golf. Tiger Woods, how did he do over the weekend? And we'll have Old School TV Monday edition number 3 for Black History Month. We'll give you a clue. This show had a lot of drama on screen and off screen. We'll leave it at that. And of course, we'll honor the late great baseball man Tim McCarver. That and a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You listen to Second City Sports right here, live in 11 color on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the special President's Day edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have less than 50 minutes left of this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comments section, you could do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Typing your questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, so let's talk some baseball here as we get closer and closer to the season. We're in spring training right right now as we speak. Of course, both the Cubs and the Sox and other MLB teams are working out right now in various spots all over Arizona and Florida. Now, the White Sox made some news yesterday by bringing back Elvis Andrus on a 1-year, $3 million deal. He gave this team a little bit of a spark last year, but he kind of faded away pretty quick. But sort of, that's pretty interesting the way they brought him back. I mean, it's a low risk deal. It's only $3 million, so I guess that's probably not a bad risk if you're Rick Hahn and the White Sox. But what do you think about that signing?
I thought it was a nice signing because, as you mentioned, he was one of the couple of additions that off the waiver wires. They did give this team a boost last year along with Johnny Cueto. And the Sox did hang around August and September when they were struggling. Of course, you had the whole Tony La Russa, Miguel Cairo situation that took place as well. But as far as on the field, and Elvis Andrus was one of a couple of players that had baseball awareness, stealing bases, running the bases. He brought defense to the infield, especially after Tim Anderson went down with that thumb injury in early August of last year. So he's going to bring some stability to second base. Of course, he played shortstop the majority of his career with Texas, and of course, he was with Oakland last year before they cut him after the trade deadline. So as long as he continues to do what he did last year, I think it's going to be an upgrade for the White Sox. I feel a little bit better about the White Sox chances this season, but just a couple of questions. At his age, can Elvis Andrus keep it up for a full year, and will it be on the roster for a full year? And number two, what this tells me is Roman Gonzalez and Lennon Sosa, both of those guys, according to the White Sox, will not be ready yet just to take over second base. Of course, second base has been a hole in that organization for a while since Gordon Beckham. That's about 12, 13 years ago. Of course, Gordon Beckham brought it with the glove, but he never could bring it with his bat. So Elvis Andrus is a super glue for that position, for at least for this year.
Right, it'll be interesting to see if, like you said, I mean, he gave him that spark, with the hitting and with the stealing bases and such. But yeah, can he keep it up? I mean, he is getting up there now in age. I think he's in his early 30s now. So I'm a little worried about that, especially. I mean, you probably won't see
age 34.
Yeah, so you probably won't see him every single day. He's probably one of those guys you'll probably see maybe every maybe 3 or 4 games that he'll take a rest and such. So it'll be interesting to see if he kind of give him that spark. I mean, from last year, I mean, we'll see. I mean, you never know, but it'll definitely, like I said, I think this is definitely a good thing for the White Sox because I know you guys have all said that the White Sox haven't done too well in the off season so far with signings, so this should help a little bit. But it'll be, like I said, you'll be interested to see what happens with that. But now Cleveland still, they made some moves, so they're gonna be right there in the division. We'll see if Minnesota can make a move. I know they've made a couple of big showings there too. So I think for me, I think could the White Sox win the AL Central? Sure, but it's going to be difficult. So we'll see what happens. Now going up to the north side for a second, it looks like Kyle Hendricks could be on his way back. He'll probably miss about the first weeks of the season. So I think all the other pickups they've made so far, of course, Dansby Swanson is probably like the number one, the top, headliner there. But of course, they brought on Cody Bellinger on a minor league deal. You got Eric Hosmer. Basically sort of the same thing with Andrews, a very low risk, potentially high reward. You only got him for the minimum, so that helps. Trey Mancini, getting him on a 2-year, $14 million deal. So with Coach Jameson telling that extra, give him the extra on the reliever side. That's a big gift for that rotation because that was probably one of the few good spots for the Cubs last year was the pitching and the relief and also the starting pitch as well. That's why he brought Talon on. Now my only concern is what are they going to do for hitting? I know we talked about with our girl Caitlin Sharkey on Friday from WGN. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering okay, where's the scoring going to come from? So we'll see. I mean, I think if you're a Cubs fan, you got to be feeling encouraged, especially after what happened last year. No one thought that that they were going to win, probably 50 or 60 games. They ended up winning 74. So they'll probably get closer and closer to 500. I don't know if they're going to be ready to compete for a wild card spot just yet. I know Milwaukee may have some ideas. We'll see where St. Louis is. A lot of their guys have retired. So if you're at least competing for a wild card spot, if you're a Cubs fan, you should be getting a little encouraged.
And let's not forget back to that Cubs starting rotation, Marcus Stroman, who had an up and down year last year as he was getting used to the new surroundings on the north side of Chicago. He was injured too last year. He did show some signs of being that potential dominant pitcher, but potential number one starter on that in that rotation. So we'll see how Marcus Stroman does in year two. He should have a much better year if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think that she really should be. Like I think Stroman had a better, would have had a better showing had he had stayed healthy. I think the Cubs probably would have had an even better record had he had stayed healthy. So that was sort of my thing with that. But I think, like I said, you should be feeling encouraged if you're a Cubs fan. Jed did a little bit of spending this year. Jed Hoyer, I mean. So like I said, that's for me. I think it's really going to be like, can we keep up that consistency, and such. I mean, look, they showed a little bit of fight last year. They could have, throw up their hands and say, you know what, no one's expecting nothing from us. Let's just suck for the rest of the year. If they did for the rest of the year, they didn't. So again, we'll see. I mean, look, the roster, like I said, I mean, when Hendricks comes back, we'll see how that starting rotation looks. I'm a little, some of the reliever guys I'm a little bit concerned about, but we'll see. I think you got some good veteran guys. You got Drew Smiley, and those guys. I mean, Keaton Thompson also too. So like, I'm not too worried about the starting rotation and the reliever. Like I said, I think the offense is gonna be, can we keep the consistency from start to finish? Of course, I think it should help. You got Hosmer. This is his first He has a World Series ring. Dansby Swanson has a World Series ring as well. So I'm not too worried about the Cubs. Trey Mancini brings that veteran presence that this team needs and such. So this, like I said, I'm not going to say they're going to win a division. I'm not going to say that that they're going to be up there with Milwaukee, but they could definitely be right there competing for one of those 3 wild card spots.
Yeah, they can, and they can push their record past 500. And also, too, who's going to be their closer for the Cubs? And that's the one thing I know not too many people are talking about, but who's going to be their closer? And we talk about the offense, who's going to produce those RBIs. We'll see what happens with that. And also, too, I don't know if you saw some of the film on Seiya Suzuki. He looks a little pretty bulked up. I know he was injured
I saw that
last year. I know he had a hot start for the month of April, and then he got injured, and then when he came back, the pitchers figured him out. He did have some sort of a renaissance second half, especially toward the last month of last year, September. So hopefully he can stay healthy with that new body of his. Hopefully he can have a breakout second year.
Yeah, he had that 15 pounds of muscle. He has definitely bulked up, so he might be primed for a big year too. So, like I said, I think it's everything. If everything kind of falls into place for the Cubs, they could be definitely be right there. At least not only pushing 500, but like I said, maybe compete for one of those 3 wild card spots. We'll see, but yeah, it'll be interesting. I think both Chicago teams, have a chance to kind of sort of not necessarily have breakout team. I think the White Sox more so than the Cubs. I think since White Sox they fell flat last year, so really, like I said, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, but in games for spring training for all 30 MLB teams will start later on this week, so it will dive deeper into our divisional previews once we get into the month of March, and we'll give you our picks towards the start of the season. So it's going to be interesting spring training, and don't forget the World Baseball Classic. Even though me personally, I think it's a big waste of time. Some of your favorite players on your favorite teams will be participating in the World Baseball Classic. So look out for that as well. We'll see how some of the White Sox stars do in there, in particular, Yohan Moncada, Luis Robert Jr., he likes to be called this year, Lakina. We'll see if they put the junior on his uniform. And so just looking at it from the White Sox perspective, we talked about this referring to Scott Merkin's article from MLB.com last week. Some of those White Sox stars, I believe Tim Anderson is in it as well. Some of them, it depends on how that team does, they can benefit from playing in the World Baseball Classic, carrying the momentum into the start of the season, because let's be honest, for both teams, but in particular the White Sox, they need to get off to a good start, especially on the new first-year manager, Pedro Grifol, who's been doing a nice job from what I've been reading and hearing, communicating with the Latin players, or all players in general, but in particular, Yohan Moncada.
Yeah. Like I said, I probably won't watch a single minute of the World Baseball Classic. So like I said, I don't want to say it's a waste, but I know team guys want to play for their home teams, or maybe not their home teams, or their adoptive teams. I guess however you want to look at it. So I think all teams kind of benefit from it. But at the same time, though, we've seen instances where guys just kind of fell flat after the World Baseball Classic. So I guess if you're a Cubs or a White Sox fan, I hope that it's more the latter and not the former. But again, we'll see what happens. But yeah, like I said, we'll get more and more in depth into baseball as we get closer and closer to opening day and such. We'll do our divisional previews. We'll probably have various guys on to talk both Cubs and Sox and MLB as a whole. So we'll get to all that as we get going here. As you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Now let's switch over to the gridiron because of course football in the NFL season never ends here. You guys know that. So we're gonna get a chance to talk about this for a second, but Derek Carr was released by the Raiders. So fortunately, there have been various suitors. The Jets, being the headliner as well. Of course, I'm sure there have been some other teams that have been mentioned, but the Jets have been kind of like the big thing. I know the Saints, but they got a lot of Saints, because he talked to Dennis Allen, a couple. I guess they're some some of the top brass from the Saints. The only problem is that the Saints don't have any money because they're well over the cap.
Yeah, it looks like they'll cut Michael Thomas because he's been injured the last couple of years, and Alpha Kamara, given his off the field situation, and he didn't have a good year last year. Looks like he may be headed out the door too. It's not, and part of it will be because of his fault. We'll see what happens with this, what happened during the Pro Bowl weekend. But the Saints still have some salary cap problems, as you mentioned. So if I was Derek Carr, I think more if you're looking at NFC South division, I think Tampa really doesn't have to rebuild that much. I know Tom Brady officially retired, so he's not coming back. So if Derek Carr, if he doesn't sign with the Jets, if he signs with Tampa Bay is a playoff contended team again. I think they'll be even better team.
I was just gonna say that if you had just let me finish, I was gonna say that Tampa might be like the better spot. But like I said, we'll see the offense. Is that offense gonna be made for Derek Carr? I think that's my only question with Tampa, but that's probably like the one. Maybe Washington. I know Eric Bieniemy. We'll get to that in a second. Eric Bieniemy, leaves Kansas City and goes to Washington. I know some people are wondering, like, why would he do that? The only thing I can think of is that he doesn't have to be in anyone's shadow. Ron Rivera is a defensive guy. We know this, of course, from his time here in Chicago, both as a player and as a DC. So he's not gonna jump in and say he'll let Bieniemy do his thing. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he wants to see if he can do it with he did with Patrick Mahomes and all and Travis Kelce and Scanlon and Smith-Schuster and all the guys around him, but I guess there other than Terry McLaurin, there's really not much there on the offense side. I know they have a decent old line, but there's not much going on there with the Commanders. So we'll see. But yeah, what do you think about that news about Eric Bieniemy going to Washington?
The only thing I can think of, and I saw this on ESPN when they introduced Bieniemy at the press conference, assistant head coach. That's the real reason why he's there, because he shouldn't have gotten a head coaching job years ago, especially following their first Super Bowl in 2019 when they defeated the 49ers. So it's not like Eric Bieniemy can't coach. It's not like he can't relate to the players. He played in the NFL back in the 90s. We were watching Lakina. I remember as a backup at San Diego with the Chargers. So he can relate to these players. He's coached the coach and coordinated some of the best offensive players we've seen in this time during the NFL. So it depends on which quarterback the Washington Commanders get, but this is a clear message that I picked up. Should Ron Rivera struggle coming out the gate this year, Eric Bieniemy will be your new head coach. The associate head coach is an important time, Lakina. That's why Eric Bieniemy signed with the Commanders. Should Ron Rivera go to a bad start, Eric Bieniemy will be your next head coach at some point next year.
Might be a bump in the salary too because of that as well. I think people are not, taking that into account too. The fact of because of that. So I'm wondering, like you said, should Washington struggle early on, like they did last season, I should say, should they do it next season? That's going to be a whole different thing. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if he gets his shot, but that's going to be kind of interesting. We'll see if he can do the same thing, as he did with Kansas City. So we'll see what happens with that one. Rex Ryan has interviewed for the Broncos DC job. okay, that's kind of interesting. He hasn't coached in like about a decade, so it'll be yeah. That kind of that was definitely a head scratcher over the weekend, but. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I'll say that. But I mean, look, he still follows the game as this, so that could help a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But what did you think about that news?
Yeah, like you say, he's still following the game closely. Of course, working with ESPN. So I don't know if he wants to go back into head coaching again. It didn't end well when he was with Buffalo almost a decade ago now. So it was probably a courtesy interview from what the vibes I could pick up. But then again, you never know. So we'll see what happens. Basically, you'll choose the comfortable life of ESPN. I'm going to that racket race of becoming a D coordinator because you know as well as I do, Lakina, assistant coaches are year-to-year jobs. So do you really want to go through the headache again? Especially after been off of it for almost close to a decade.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see if he does decide. I think it's more of a courtesy interview, like you said. I think even Sam Ponder, who was NFL Countdown Sunday NFL Countdown with Coach Ryan. I think even she said, no, that ain't happening. Like, wait, what? Apparently, I guess they didn't know that he was interviewing for the job. So it might be for a courtesy interview. Now, apparently, Daniel Jones wants $45 million. This is according to some of the reports, and I guess now he's switching agents. So. It's a little bit weird that look. I know he had a good year this past season, but 45 million, that's a little bit much. But apparently, I guess he's in the process of changing agents. So, who knows? He's been represented by CAA.
How many years?
It didn't say that from what I read. Yeah, it didn't say. I think he wants a $45 million bonuses. I guess. I think he wants a long-term deal. But yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I didn't see anything about like length. I just saw like I guess he want 45 million bonuses. I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he deserves 45 million. I know he's a little bit of a bump in pay, but not 45 million signing signing and stuff, extra bonuses. But yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that's a 3-year deal, a 2-year with an option for a third for $45 million. I think that's fair for Daniel Jones. I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback. He performed well this year, Lakina. He's one of the big reasons why the Giants went to the playoffs this year. And of course, they took advantage of a bad schedule during the first half of the year. So let's put that out there as well. So Brian Daboll brought the playbook from Buffalo to New York, and Daniel Jones did a great job. Now it looks like will he have Saquon Barkley back with him, and they need a number one wide receiver. So, but as far as his pay, he will get a bump in pay, but I'm not going to break the bank for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Yeah, I know he had a nice season this past season, but I'm a little I wouldn't want to give him that much money, especially like you said they benefited from a easy schedule, quote unquote easy schedule. So I wouldn't give him that much. But Ronaldo Hill, if the name sounds familiar, of course, he was the DC with the Chargers. Now he's leaving there to go to reunite with Vic Fangio, who's now the DC over at Miami. I mean, he made that defense one of the best in the league. So I'm a little surprised by this, but I think he wants to reunite with Fangio and such. There might be some other stuff going on with the Chargers. We don't know, but that was a little bit somewhat surprising when that news came across this morning.
Yeah, and I was surprised as well. The Chargers made that offensive coordinator change with Kellen Moore leaving the Cowboys to join them. Of course, respond to them using air quotes for those of you listening on our podcast replay. Respond to that bad loss they had against Jacksonville in the wild card playoff. So the Chargers have enough pressure on them as it is. Their defense was actually good this year, when healthy.
Yeah.
So let's see if they can do it again. But Brandon Staley, he's on the hot seat now.
Oh yeah, definitely, and should have been. You probably say he should have been gone this past off season, but what can you do with that? But yeah, I'm a little bit. That's gonna be interesting too with the Chargers. So we'll see what happens. But Aaron Rodgers still his retreat, so I guess he has one more day. So I'm over the whole Rodgers.
Me too.
Is he gonna retire? Just when he makes a decision. I don't need extra.
Go away. That's my 2 words for him. Go away.
I don't need excerpts from the Pat McAfee show and such. So just make a decision. But yeah, I mean, there's so much. Some people say that could they cut Ezekiel Elliott? Talk about the Cowboys. Could the Bucks trade Chris Godwin? I think you just mentioned a couple others that could be coming across the pike. Sid. So well, it'll be interesting in the next few weeks once the new league year starts. A lot of questions will be answered, I feel like, and we'll see.
Just one more question, and this regarding our Bears before we break for the bottom of the hour. If it's for the right price, would you re-sign David Montgomery? I would, for the right price.
But is he going to want the money though? Because I think he might ask for a little bit of extra bump in salary. Will Ryan Poles be able to pay him that, or will want to pay him that? Because I don't want to say that running backs are a dime a dozen, but for what he does, you could probably go to free agency and get you a running back that's still very young. You can probably draft a running back in the later rounds and perhaps maybe mold him. So I don't know. I know the Bears will have a lot of money in cap space and blah blah blah. But
I don't know. They got to save for Justin Fields in a couple years. Don't forget that.
Exactly. So I don't know. I don't know if Poles is gonna want to break, not necessarily break the bank, but give him a little bit of a bump. But I don't know. It depends. I haven't heard about what his demands are. I'm talking about Montgomery, so I don't know.
So we'll see what happens with that. That's your latest from the rumor mill for the National Football League. Last segment of the show coming up, Lakina. We'll honor Tim McCarver, who passed away last week. We'll give you a top 10 list of the MLB center fielders in the best in the game right now. Of course, a future former Blackhawk ... question mark make history last night. We'll give you details on that. And we'll have our week 3 edition of Old School TV Monday, Black History Month edition. That and a whole lot more as you continue to support us and listen and watch us right here on Second City Sports, the special President's Day edition. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Gotcha.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Second City Sports on the special President's Day edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee. I am Sydney Brown. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have less than 25 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show. If you want to get these last minute / fourth quarter comments into our comment section, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Typing in questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Lakina, let's get this out the way and go local. Mm-hmm. Of course, let's do their hockey for less than 2 minutes. The Blackhawks pick up a rare win last night, beating the Toronto Maple Leafs at the United Center 5-3. Patrick Kane, could he could he have watched his last home game at the United Center in the Blackhawks uniform? We'll see what happens in a couple of weeks. But Patrick Kane recorded his 9th career hat trick last night, scoring 3 goals, and they get an empty netter to wrap it up at the end. Lakina. Before we get to Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews and the Blackhawks released some news before the game yesterday. Of course, Jonathan Toews hasn't played since January 28th. He said that he's suffering long symptoms of COVID and a couple other health issues, but he says he's focusing on his health and he is trying to get back to playing hockey at some point this year. I will ask you, we've been asking this question all year long, will one or both of them be traded by March 3rd? I think it's a strong possibility for Kane, but Toews, especially getting his health setback right now, I think Jonathan Toews is staying.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. When I saw that news yesterday, well, first the news came out that they word that he wasn't playing for a little bit longer. I'm like, something must be up. But not surprised. They probably won't trade him because of the health reasons and such. But yeah, tough. Our best wishes to him, because I know he's been going through the last couple of years. So I now you read that he's suffering from long COVID and other injuries as well. So yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Whether it's via trade or whatnot, but we'll see what happens in the offseason. If he is on his way to recovery, maybe they can get something from him during the offseason. Mm-hmm. Maybe Kyle Davidson, I'm sure, will make the calls after their season's over with to see what's going on there. But I'm not surprised by that. Now, Kaner is a different story because I saw a little bit of that game, last night. I mean, he looked like the old Patrick Kane we saw from a few years back from those cup runs. I mean, of course, his nice career hat trick, and you saw the hats, from the actually not a back. It wasn't a back right over at the UC. I know that. Of course, we know that the Hawks aren't going anywhere this year, but it was a nice showing, by them. And look, I think probably. I'm sure, Kyle Davis, again, is probably making some calls to various teams, who probably is going to need someone like Kaner and his skills. I mean, I'm sure Carolina may need somebody like him.
Yeah.
They need that extra scoring. They got one of the top records in the league. Boston could probably use an extra guy. Maybe, Toronto, that was a little bit of an upset there. Toronto, with them upsetting them last night, but maybe Dallas. I mean, I don't know if they want to trade him within the Central Division, but Dallas or Winnipeg could probably use them. Vegas could use them. The Canes, the Kraken. So there are a lot of teams that could use Kaner, and I know that. I don't know if Kaner has a list of teams. I know he's got a no trade clause and such. So I'm sure he'll have his pick on what teams if he decides he wants to go and he doesn't want to go anywhere. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
I think strongly. I thought one of those teams would have been the New York Rangers, but they made that move to acquire Vladimir Tarasenko from St. Louis a couple weeks ago. Yep. So, and if you watched or listened to our show during the Stanley Cup playoffs the last couple of years, the Rangers they didn't have enough scoring to get over that hump during the playoffs. Nope. They always do good during the regular season, but come to playoffs, they usually struggle scoring. Things get kind of tight during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I think the Tarasenko move would help the New York Rangers. Now back to Patrick Kane. Yeah, you mentioned about 5-6 teams. And I know part of him wants to stay here because he has a young son now, and he's just started a family. So you had to put that into consideration as well. So I think it's still a 50-50 call at best if he gets traded on March the 3rd.
I still miss Panarin. I still miss the bread man.
I know.
I miss him. What's it? I'm sorry. Going back to my my skis for a second. yeah. That's
Him and Tarasenko will, they're at least on paper they'll make a great duo for the Rangers.
Yeah, I think I really like that was they needed to make that move. I'm talking about the Tarasenko move because the Rangers I know they lost a couple of nights ago, but I think they had won 7 in a row before that. So I'm optimistic about the Rangers. I mean, they were right there. You know, they lost a tough one in the conference semis, but I think they could kind of this is one of the things that because they need more scoring. So for me, I think the Tarasenko move can only help them a lot in that department. Plus, he's a good defender too. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, look, we'll see if Kaner goes anywhere. If he does, he might not. There's a 50-50 chance he might not. So I don't know. I mean, I know the Hawks. So they're trying to get that number that top 3 one of those top 3 picks in the NHL draft over the sun.
Connor Bedard, mission Connor Bedard.
Okay, that's I don't know if you can make a good rhyme for that. Said tank for Bedard. I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if he did that with his last name, but yeah, that's the guy that a lot of. A lot of teams like the Blue Jackets, the Blackhawks. I know the Ducks are down there at the bottom.
Yeah, Anaheim stinks.
Yeah, Montreal's not very good either. So you gotta think that those 4 teams are going to be battling out for him. So yeah, it's going to be still. But yeah, like I said, I mean, as back to Kaner, I mean, it'll be hard to see him go, but I would be surprised if he doesn't go. But like I said, it's 50-50 whether or not he goes or stays, I should say.
One more hockey note before we move on. Did you check any of the action from last Saturday night in that Stadium Series?
Yes,
I watched it for about 5 minutes. I said, "Damn, no Alex Ovechkin."
I know.
And I turned. Carolina did what they did, and then they beat Washington. Washington, it's surprising they still have a good record despite all their injuries. So hopefully they'll get some healthy bodies back soon.
Yeah. Unfortunately, of course, Ovi lost his dad a couple weeks ago. That's why he did not play. Our thoughts and prayers to him and his family. But yeah, I mean, that was a tough one. I loved, like I said, I love Carolina. You know how I feel about that team. I love that team. They did very well in their game. So I think that I'm not gonna say they're gonna go to the Stanley Cup final. And because they still got to deal with Boston and Toronto and Tampa. Tampa's like, hey, we're still here. We're still here, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, look, I mean, there's still a lot, and I mean, it's gonna be interesting though to see, especially with some of those teams. I mean, Dallas has been very good this year. Like I said, Vegas, Los Angeles has kind of had a bounce back year. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's gonna be very interesting as we get closer and closer, especially if Kaner does go anywhere. We'll see. I mean, and other guys too. I mean, you got other various guys that could be on the move too. Other veteran guys.
If you trade Kane, I think if you're Kyle Davidson, preferably you want to trade him to the Eastern Conference, so you want to see him 4 times a year, because there's a logjam in the middle of the Eastern Conference with those teams you mentioned. Florida's starting to pick it up now.
Florida, yeah.
We talked about Detroit, Pittsburgh. So those teams I just mentioned can use Kane's services.
Yeah, I think Sidney Crosby had a nice showing too over the weekend. I think he's the 25th goal, the 13th time in his career that he actually has reached that mark. That's the most in franchise history. Surpassed, of course, Marilyn Mew, who did it for 12 seasons. This is their this is like I think it's like 11th season Crosby Sid. So 11th, 12th around there. So I mean, like you said, I mean, there was definitely for all the teams we mentioned, of course, the Devils. I know our buddy Matt Verderam is a big Devils fan, New Jersey Devils fan. They've been playing very well this year. So look, there are a lot of teams out east. I'm sure Kyle Davis is going to want to make sure to try to get a Eastern Conference team to trade, because I know he doesn't want to see Kaner a lot if he keeps in the Western Conference. So yeah, it'll be very interesting these next couple of weeks.
Yep, it'll be fun to see what happens with the men in red. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live and live in color. Sid McKinney here with you. A couple more items to get to before we end it with Old School TV Monday, our Black History Edition. We didn't get to this last week either, Lakina, but Tim McCarver, the former MLB player and broadcaster, passed away at the age of 81. Of course, he played for the St. Louis Cardinals as a catcher from 1959 until 1980. And he also played for the Philadelphia Phillies as well. He was a two-time All-Star and helped the Cardinals to the 64 World Series title. And he played with the now late great Bob Gibson, who was an outstanding pitcher during those times. And he was a great broadcaster as well. He did the MLB on CBS, ABC. He did 26 World Series. Of course, he got hired by Fox in 96 and retired from Fox following the 2013 World Series. He called the Chicago White Sox 2005 World Series with Joe Buck, as White Sox fans well know. And he did some local broadcasts as well for both the Mets and the Yankees in the late 90s.
Won 2 World Series with the Cardinals, and was it with the game for 60 years as a player, as a broadcaster. I remember on ABC, of course, remember that earthquake sitting in 1989 Bay Area series with Oakland and San Francisco.
Al Michaels too. It was epic. For those of you though that didn't remember that or haven't seen it, go check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, the covers was a stellar. Also, Jim Palmer. I know he wrote a nice tribute to him. Of course, they worked together for a few years on ABC. Of course, CBS. He called a couple the back-to-back World Series with Toronto. Of course, when that went to Fox, they did it for a few years. He did it for you too with Joe Buck. We had known for this since he was a kid. So of course, his late father was a voice of the Cardinals and called those 2 World Series locally. For McCarver and Bob Gibson. So yeah, he was a voice of a generation. Now, like I said, we're not that old, Sid. So we're not old enough to remember when he played. I'm talking about Mr. McCarver, but we remember, of course. I remember when at ABC and CBS now, then with Fox, of course. That was a great time because you saw there were like at least those games came out at least like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yes.
The weekends game of the week, but you also saw some primetime games too. They had Monday Night Baseball for a little bit that McCarver was a big part of. And, it was definitely a different time. He was very warm and engaging and very knowledgeable. And, of course, I'm sure a lot of some folks will remember, of course, he got dumped by a bucket of ice by Dion.
I don't want to make it all about that, but that's part of the story as well. And of course, if you remember the ESPN 30 for 30 special that came out about a year or 2 ago, they did put the disclaimer out there that they did reach out to Tim McCarver. Tim McCarver said, no, I'm not going to do it. For those of you that don't know the backstory, on that day in October of 92, Deion Sanders, who was playing baseball at the time for the Atlanta Braves, they were in the NLCS against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was also playing for the Atlanta Falcons as well. Of course, this was a couple years before he moved to San Fran and helped them win the Super Bowl, of course, the following year with the Cowboys. But he played the Falcons were playing Miami earlier in the day, and then he flew on his private jet to Pittsburgh to play in the NLCS against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Both McCarver and McDonough, both, as the kids were saying, went in on Deion Sanders, calling him selfish. Why did he do that? And that was the era at that time that you saw 2 sport athletes. You didn't have that many, but you had a couple. Besides Deion Sanders, you had Bo Jackson and, of course, Brian Jordan, who doesn't get enough credit for that. Because remember, he played for the Falcons, too. Of course, in baseball, he played for the Braves, Cardinals, and I forgot also who he played for. He played for the Dodgers, so he played for a bunch of other teams later on in his career. But Brian Jordan was a heck of a football player as well, playing for the Falcons. But back to Deion, of course, after Atlanta beat Pittsburgh in Game 7 in 92 in Atlanta, in an epic ending to that game, of course, Deion Sanders was celebrating with his teammates in the locker room. He saw Tim McCarver start splashing little bits of drops of water at him. And, of course, Tim McCarver turns around and says, "You're a real man, Deion."
Yeah, unfortunately for some folks, that's going to be the lasting moment for him, for folks. But it's unfortunate that they didn't, they weren't able to patch things up. So that was unfortunate that they didn't able to come to a agreement. I know he and Sean McDonough made up, but I'm talking about him and Deion. So I don't know why they weren't able to, that him and McCarver were able to patch things up. But it is what it is there. But yeah, I mean, look, going back to his career, I'm talking about McCarver's career on television. So he was a voice of a generation. Very knowledgeable and such. I mean, that was sort of the thing, with older folks, they'll let you know. So, you got to give a little bit of credit there. I'm talking about McCarver, but yeah, but look, I mean, he played he called some great games. He was a great pitcher. So, I'm just gonna remember him for that. I mean, yeah, that's for me. That whole thing with Dion was just a footnote in that history.
Yeah.
I know some people will want to make that like the main thing, but he was more than that.
Agreed. I usually don't do too much quote unquote free advertising on this show, but I will advertise a YouTube channel. It's called This Is Where You Find Baseball. I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah, I think
This is where you find baseball. They put up a couple of games that Tim McCarver broadcasted when he was with the Mets back in the day. Remember WWOR?
Yes,
When they was
I
trying
remember.
to become a
Oh gosh.
superstation on cable.
Yes. Oh God. Yes, I remember that they show the commercials all the time when we first
Yeah.
got cable.
So they were trying to be the stepping stone to what WGN did here in Chicago with the superstation
Right.
across the country on cable. So this is where you find baseball. Check out their YouTube channel. They have some great classic games. If you're a Cubs and a White Sox fan, they have some old games from their winning seasons as well. But they put up a few Tim McCarver games for this last week or so. So go check it out. This is where you find baseball. It's a YouTube channel. All the games are in entirety. Basically commercial free, a couple local commercials here and there, if you remember, but mostly commercial free.
So our thoughts and prayers go out to the rest of his family. As we remember the late great Hall of Fame pitcher and broadcaster Tim McCarver. As listeners, I can see sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Anything else that you want to talk about before we go to our old school TV Monday? As I keep fading in and out with this background here.
Let's go to our good friends at Odyssey real quick. We won't take too much time. Maybe we could pick this up on Friday, but they released our good folks at Odyssey. They put out a top 10 list this all season from each position. Today we'll do the top. They have their top 10 MLB center fielders for the 2023 season. And number 10, they have Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Number 9, Cedric Mullins. Of course, he helped Baltimore have a surprise season, even though they came up a few wins short of the playoffs. Number 8, Chaz Chisholm of the Miami Marlins.
Okay.
Too bad the Sox couldn't get him, but that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
Speaking of the White Sox, Luis Robert Jr. checks in at number 7.
Okay, I could get with that.
Yeah, number 6, Brian Reynolds of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay.
Number 5, Michael Harris II of Atlanta. He really had a good year last year. 19 home runs, 64 RBI. Number 4, Brandon Nimmo, which I thought the Sox were in the running for, but Brian Stover's cheating, not giving out money, but that's a whole nother issue. So Brandon Nimmo at number 4 from the New York Mets. Number 3, Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. If he's, when he's healthy, he's one of the best 5-tool players in Major League Baseball. So Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins checks in at number 3. Number 2, Julio Rodriguez of the Seattle Mariners. He got that big contract. Yeah, he got the big contract last year. Of course, he almost won home run derby during the All-Star game in Los Angeles. Of course, Seattle returned to the playoffs for the first time in 21 years. And according to Odyssey, the number 1 center fielder for 2023, Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels.
I think you could flip that, especially since Trout was injured for some time last year. But I can kind of see why he was very, very productive before he got hurt. So I'm not going to be too miffed about that. I don't have a problem with that list because we saw how far Minnesota fell when Buxton got hurt. So you saw how far they were right there in that for a wild card spot because they were right there back and forth with Cleveland and the White Sox. So once he got hurt, kind of the wheels kind of fell off for Minnesota. So but I don't have no problem with that list. I'm okay with that. I mean, like I said, I think that's the right list, especially the top 5. So I'm fine with that list.
All right.
So real quick, before we go to old school team, we will talk a little bit of golf for a second. The Genesis Open commenced out west. John Rahm, his 3rd title this year, his 9th overall. He actually breaks Seve Ballesteros' record for most PGA Tour wins by a Spaniard. Of course, he now trails, I believe, Miguel Angel Jimenez. I think that's the only guy he trails. But another really good showing for him. That long putt on 14, I should say, definitely sealed that win for him. Of course, he and Max Roma had a great not back and forth, but they were tired for a little bit. But like I said, that long birdie putt on 14, kind of like I think it was 16, but it kind of like he ran away with that. I'm talking about Rom after that, but yeah, a really great showing by him. Like I said, his third win already this year. He's always had like 5 or 6 top 10 finishes already this year. So amazing. But Tiger, you're wondering where is Tiger at? Well, I mean, he had a great showing in the weekend, but he didn't really do too well after that. And you could tell by the way he was walking, he was still a little. He ended up finishing tied for 45th. This is his tournament, by the way, in Palisades. So this is actually his tournaments, the Genesis Invitational, but didn't do too well. But you can tell that knee's still bothering him. So
yeah, if he was healthy, he would definitely finish probably within the top 10, top 15 at best. But I wanted to ask you, do you think that we saw what he did at the Masters last year, and that was just right after that accident? Do you think he'll try to give it a go again this year? Because we'll have a little bit over a month between now and the start of the Masters in early April.
yeah, I'm wondering, could he perhaps maybe try and do it? I know he wants to try go to a couple other warm up tournaments. I'm talking about Tiger. So, but you could tell that he kind of felt winded and was exhausted. So we'll see. But I know he's gonna try and play. I know it kills him when he doesn't have to, when he doesn't play the Masters. So I'm a little So we'll see. I mean, like I said, you got a little while before they're already showing promos for it on ESPN. Go figure with that one. But
yeah,
but I think he'll try to make a go at it if he has to do it on a walker. I mean, he might try to. He might use a golf cart or a walker. I don't know if he's not doing.
Yeah, give that man a golf cart. He deserves it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're allowed to do it at Augusta though. I don't know, but yeah, you can tell he's still listening in pain. He's still recovering and such. So yeah, that's tough to watch, but I'm sure he'll try to make a go at it.
Yep. Now it's time for Old School TV Monday Black History Month edition. This is our third entry into our Old School TV Monday edition for the month of February. Lakina, let's hang out with detectives J.C. Williams and Eddie Torres in New York Undercover. That's right. New York Undercover was an American police drama that aired on the Fox television network from September 8th of 1994 to February 11th, 1999. The series starred Malik Yoba and Michael De Lorenzo as two undercover detectives in New York City's 4th Precinct who were assigned to investigate various crimes and gang-related issues. The cast also included Patty Quinn as their supervisor, Lieutenant Virginia Cooper, and Lauren Valdez, who came in at season 2, who joined the cast as Nina Moreno, fellow detective and love interest to Torres. New York Undercover was co-created and co-produced by Dick Wolf, and its storyline takes place in the same fictional universe as Wolf's NBC series Law & Order. It spin-offs the Chicago and FBI series and Homicide: Life on the Street. New York Undercover, who was working the title during development, was Uptown Undercover, named after the record label Uptown Records, whose co-founder and CEO, the late Andre Harrell, who was also the executive producer of the series, is notable for being the first police drama on American television to feature two people of color in starring roles. In contrast to popularity of NBC's must-see TV on Thursday nights in the 90s, many African-American viewers flocked to Fox's Thursday night lineup, which included Martin, Living Single, and, of course, New York Undercover. Lakina, before I have my little rant, I want you to get yours out your system first.
Oh, Lord, you want me to do my rant first? Yes. Yeah, I was glued to the television. It was great to see two lead characters of color, especially in a big city like New York, doing the police, detective work and such. I mean, Torres and Williams were my guys, and I loved that. Look, I was one of those folks that flocked to Fox at 8:00 to catch that to catch it. But I mean, they weren't afraid to go there with some of the various issues. They tackled gang, they tackled drugs. I know Patty D'Armaville's character, I forgot her name. Darn it, I forgot her names at the top of my head, but yeah, her character's daughter, dealt with sex trafficking or child molestation and such. So they weren't afraid to go there with those various issues and whatnot. They had great great guest stars, of course. Naomi Campbell, Edie Falco, a pre-Sopranos. Edie Falco was on there as Sergeant Kelly, who kind of helped out with cases and such. Josh Hopkins, he was on there. What else? They had like a who's who of Tyra Banks was on the show. Isaiah Washington before Grays, he was on there.
Michael
Jennifer
Michelle
Esposito.
from New Jack City.
Yeah, she had a recurring role as Williams's wife. Giancarlo Esposito, among many others, many others guest stars. I know there are so many, too many to count, I would say, but
Yeah.
but I know George Gore, of course, who played Little G, the son, Williams' son. Of course, he went on to do My Wife and Kids. We won't go there because I got to write about that show too. We'll probably do that show at some point.
Yeah.
I got to write about that. But yeah, I mean, Laura Velez. I mean, I loved her character when she first came on. But apparently, Fox was messing with Michael DeLorenzo's money, and that's apparently why he left after the third season. And of course, Josh Hopkins and Marissa Ryan, who I believe was on who's on Major Dad, I think. That's where I grew up watching her, and they've played the two new detectives. Thomas Michael Ford, of course, God rest his soul. He played the new boss once Patty D'Arbanville left. It just wasn't the same, and it wasn't the same after Torres's death. And I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. I know Sid has a longer rant, but to me, that ended the show right there. I actually didn't watch the show too much after that because that was your bread and butter. Michael DeLorenzo and Malik Yoba had great chemistry. Not just you could tell that they were close on set. They still are after all these years. But once DeLorenzo left, because Fox effed around with his money, the show ended it. That ended it for me. Because I felt like once Torres died. I know it's been like 25 years, but spoiler alert, folks.
Yeah.
I'm not spoiling anything, but it just wasn't the same after he left. It wasn't.
Here's the thing. There was some great storylines on that show. I really enjoyed that. I know we're 80s babies, Lakina. I remember Miami Vice in the 80s, but I was too young to watch. I caught up in reruns on cable and other various stations in Chicago during the 90s and so forth. But New York Undercover was our Miami Vice for the 90s because you had two young guys that could relate to the people that they were working in the community. It was in the hip hop culture, which was being brought on primetime television. We haven't seen that before. Remember Ice-T, of course, after that controversy of cop killing and Rodney King riots and all those politicians that year, because it was that year 92 was doing for the presidency. We won't get too much into that, but that show actually helped start his movie career and his television career before Law and Order SVU. And I thought they used this character great on that show. Of course, J.C. Williams was a single father taking care of his kids. He was involved in the love triangle. Of course, you saw what happened after season 1. Michael Michelle's character was killed off by Ice-T. And I thought that was a great storyline, even though I was devastated like everybody else watching that show. And let's give props to, I saw this interview. He was on with Sway in the Morning 5 years ago. James Itume, who had that song called Juicy Fruit, later sampled by Notorious B.I.G. in the 90s. He was the music composer for New York Undercover. And remember that club Natalie's? He brought on all those guest stars from the old school and from those current artists at the time, like Escape, SWV, the late Aaliyah, Casey and JoJo, and Mary J. Blige was on that show. Notorious B.I.G. was on that show. Remember that episode, Lakita, is centered around, they couldn't say his name at the time, but remember after Tupac got killed, they did a special episode about that. And Rolanda Williams, who was a famous talk show host in the late 80s, early 90s, she appeared on that show, and they had Notorious B.I.G.'s Sticky Fingers, Yo-Yo, and I forgot who the other rapper was. They did a special episode of Was Hip Hop in Trouble, because remember, gangster rap was dominating the charts back in the mid-90s with Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and Tupac, and others. So they really tackled some issues, and the storylines were good, but like I said, some of the stuff behind the scenes, it was just crazy.
Well, yeah, no, it's like I said, it was one of those things where you just wonder, like, Jonathan LaPaglia, he joined in as a detective and such. So, like I said, I mean, I think I really felt like, the show lost a lot of its when Michael DeLorenzo's character was let go. So, it like I said, I mean, it had great musical guests. I mean, I think streaming on Peacock, I believe. So, if you have Peacock, make sure you guys check that out. But yeah, I think for me, I think it kind of lost its way. I don't know how long the show would have lasted had Michael DeLorenzo had not left, but the music and everything else, and all the musical guests that they had, they played at the club. like you said, a lot of those folks will release their different albums. That was a thing back in the 90s where all these shows, like on Fox and on the WB, they all had musical guests, promote their albums and their new material and such. So that definitely was a thing there. And unfortunately, with licensing fees, that's not the case anymore. But
yeah,
I felt like that was a big element to the show as well. Was the music?
Remember they cut that out after that episode aired about the rappers getting shot. They cut out the singer singing in the club at the end. I thought that was another death nail in the coffin too.
That was definitely a big part of it. That was a big part of why that show became such a big hit. That it
I was looking forward to that at the end of every episode. Some of those newer artists at the time singing classic hits, and then the opposite for the older artists. Remember Gladys Knight, who was the owner of the club? She was on that show. I believe Isaac Hayes was on that show.
Yep.
So they had a mixture of old school and new school artists from that era on that show. I thought it was very well represented. I'm just mad that they cut that out.
Yeah, they could have done some R&B. They could have even done some like some Latin, some rap, rock stuff. But kind of like represented what New York City was about. But at that time, because it was becoming more and more diverse by that point. So to me, I think that was another thing that kind of that the death nail to that show. But when they cut that part out, but I just think they ran scared and such. So that whole thing with Tupac and Big after all that transpired, I think that definitely kind of killed, not literally, but it kind of just put the momentum of that show. But who knows how long the show would have lasted had like I said, had Michael DeRosa not left. I felt that kind of not necessarily killed the show once they messed around with his money. And I really felt that was sort of like the death nail to that show. Of course, they brought on different characters and different folks, coming in and such, but it just wasn't the same after that. And you can kind of tell, you can tell. Malik Yoba has said in various interviews that he kind of felt that he knew it wasn't going to be long after DiLorenzo left.
Yeah, and Michael DiLorenzo, if you know the story, he didn't find out that he was gone from the show until they read the script to film that episode. And he was shocked just like everyone else. And also, too, another footnote to Michael DiLorenzo's character, Fox didn't really promote that show at the time. And they were trying to branch out to a wider audience. They had the Black American audience on lock, as the kids would say. But Michael DiLorenzo's role was supposed to go to a white actor. After they couldn't find a white actor, he kept. I watched an interview last night with DiLorenzo. He said that he kept begging his agent to go do the run as the screen test for the show. So he did it, and they were impressed. So they couldn't help but give him the job.
Right. So you saw that thing on Ungsan. They really didn't do too much. I mean, they didn't really get into why Patty D'Armaville left. They didn't say why she left, but I think that might have been some other stuff going on behind the scenes with her money as well. So there was a lot of things and such that kind of went on. I mean, that show could have lasted longer, but it is what it is with that. But it felt like there was a lot of directions that they could have went, but they didn't. So it is what it is with that. And I look, you catch all the episodes are streamed on Peacock. I'm sure it's streamed on other places as well. But if you want to run some memories and such, I mean, they still show the music, and whatnot. That was tough when they decided not to do that anymore. But I think, like I said, there were other directions that the show could have went. That you always wonder what could have happened had he not gotten killed off. But I know they were trying to do a different version, but I know on ABC, but it didn't get picked up because the script wasn't very good from what I heard. So that's one reason why that because they were supposed to have been doing a reboot of New York Undercover, but the script wasn't very good, and I guess ABC didn't pick it up.
Yeah, MC Light was supposed to be in that one too. This was from like 3 or 4 years ago. They had a couple of other originals to sign on, but MC Light was supposed to play their boss, and then Michael DiLorenzo, they couldn't contact him. Like I say, if a reboot was to happen, he has to be in it. Talking about Michael DiLorenzo, he has to be in it.
Now, unless you're going to say that he has been held captive or has been in the coma all these years, I think that's probably the only way you can kind of right the ship there. That maybe, I guess someone maybe saw that he was still alive, and they took him, somewhere to another hospital, I guess off the beaten path, and maybe he's been in the coma and I'm putting on my soap opera hat for a second with that, but that'd be a nice way to kind of right that ship, but have him and JC reunite, but. it is what it is with there.
But it was still a great show. It was the number 3 show on the Fox network at the time as far as comedies behind Martin and Living Single. So it did well in the ratings. It did like a 7.8 in its first year, and it did double digits its next 2 years. But like you said, Lakina, after Michael's character was killed off, it tanked and it got canceled. So for Black History Month for Old School TV Monday, we salute the Fox TV police drama New York Undercover. Lakina, take us home.
With that said, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast at War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, go ahead and give them a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And don't forget, you can catch Second City Sports on Roku TV.
Yeah, anytime you want, you check out our show, Sean and Maya. What's up, cuz, and the Smoke Fellas. So we'll see if I'm sure Jay and Vernon will have something on for the guys tonight. I know they're but I'm sure they got something planned too, because I guess the IHSA boys basketball playoffs are going on right now as we speak. So they may talk a lot about that too. So just make sure you guys check out their show coming up tonight at 6.
Yep. And don't forget, you can catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. And in a personal note, Lakina, great job on WVON's the Sports Fundamental Sports Show in Chicago on last Friday. You sounded great with Titus and both of them, Titus and Arturo DJ Turbine, yeah.
And our producer Day as well. So
yeah,
you guys can check that interview out on the WVO and Facebook page also too. I think on iHeart too. I think they're also on iHeart as well. So make sure you guys check that out too. So for Sid, I'd like he has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Holla.